financials through July 31st, so the 7 months there. So it's a pretty hearty package that I gave you. So I have a summary sheet there attached. One thing to note is that the unrestricted cash in the bank account has decreased by about $640,000 over the same period last year. Now, during that period, $280,000 was spent on police, about $594,000 on roads, and $122,000 on sewage projects. And last year's number was artificially increased by some of the funds received from EQT and Sunoco. So you guys have put that money to work is what I'm getting at. So that looks better. Your revenue has exceeded the budget through the first 7 months of the year, which is good to see. The biggest concern were the earned income tax and the real estate tax, which are ahead of budget by ahead of last year by 2.7% and 3.2% respectively. So the funding is continuing to come in. You know, COVID has hurt the township, but not as bad as you know, some of the thoughts were whenever the budget was prepared in September, October, November of last year. The township did receive $21,000 in the COVID-19 relief from the county in February, and then $297,000 was part of the funds that they're going to receive from the American Rescue Plan Act, and as part of the 2021 plan. You should receive additional funding as well that has not been released yet. You know, in general, you guys have done a nice job monitoring the expenses. I recommend a couple of accounts be closed because there's minimal activity on there, and I will communicate that again with the Secretary Treasurer to make sure those are closed. Liquid fuels, the funding for liquid fuels is actually slightly higher than budget, 1.5%, 7% decrease over last year. I'm going to assume that 2021 or 2022's figures will be similar, but we don't know that yet. We'll see where the travel season takes us. Alabama Sewage, that account, the expenses are slightly below budget due to some of the timing, but you guys have also managed the expenses there as well. You budgeted for $200,000 in repairs. Nothing's needed yet, so let's hope that continues. And then your local share gaming fund, you guys have 2 accounts dedicated there. We recommend we close those bank accounts, move them into another bank account to consolidate, because you'll see in the report that there's minimal activity over the last 7 months. And then Overlook Sewage Department bills went out here on July 22nd. So that is all seems to work well. Still working on a couple of kinks in the project with some of the staff here. And then the quarterly consumption readings will be provided by South Park, which are part of the quarterly readings that we'll need to review overages. Spoke with Houston and Associates yesterday. They're moving on the audit. They picked up some reports yesterday to confirm with the bank account. The biggest holdup right now is GASB 68, which is holding up a lot of township reports. I'm a proponent of not issuing the audit until you receive 2019's pension report from the state, because the most recent report they have is 2018. So they're literally 2 years behind. We'll see what happens there. Some townships have elected to go ahead and release the reports, but I'm recommending we continue to hold off on that. They're hoping to have field work done in August and we can issue that report. So just on some of the raw financial data, I just want to draw your attention. On page 1 there of 30, you can see where your unrestricted cash has been. You can see the decrease there. We already talked about that, but I just wanted to show that. And you do have some of that cash has gone to sewage projects and roads like we've talked about. If you look on your next page, page 10, you can see where your earned income tax are. To budget, it's 111% over budget so far, $390,000 for the year. That's always good to see. Residents are back to work, working, and the tax is being remitted. So that is continued to be above budget, which is always good. The next page I want you guys to take a look at is page 16. 16 of 30, which compares last year's real estate taxes and earned income taxes to this year. Once again, you're ahead of schedule. So even with everything going on in the healthcare world, it appears as if the township has recovered with the real estate tax and the earned income tax revenue, and that's getting back to normal. If you look at page 17, you can see the grant money received First line there's 21,787. In August here is whenever you receive the American Rescue Plan funds, so you'll see that hit in August. Those funds are partially restricted. You have 5 years to use those funds. We're still waiting. There's guidance being updated every week on that, it seems like. So as soon as we get better guidance, but I've had discussions on how to use that money, and we'll get back to the board on that. But you'll see that in August if you're looking for that in the notes. If you jump to page 21, 21 is where you can see some of the funding that has been spent on the roads thus far. It was the Cardoff Road that was done in spring and a little bit of last year. So it's $103,000 that the township reinvested in the roads. Jumping ahead to page 25, that's some of the debt that the township has based on the El Rama sewage project. Through 7 months, the township's paid off $34,000 in debt. If you look, the debt went from $1.2 million in December of 2020, and currently the debt's sitting at about $1.167. So the township continues to pay off debt. Jumping down to page 28, that's where you can see the El Rama financials, the profit and loss for the year. Collections are still being done by so reports are provided to the township monthly, and we reconcile those reports. Expenses are down about $4,000, and collections are virtually flat, an increase of 1.1%. So residents are still paying. You guys are monitoring expenses. On page 29, you can see the local share gaming fund. Those funds have increased by $44 over the past year. So those are the accounts. You're only collecting interest. My recommendation would be the township consolidate those into another account, and then those accounts can be closed, mainly due to just mitigating risk. Having too many bank accounts can always just lead to issues. So, you know, the biggest highlight that people might be concerned about is the decrease in cash of $640,000, but it's going to be reinvested into the township, and the township is still sitting on approximately $3.5 million in unrestricted cash as of July 31st. So it's still in good financial shape with additional projects coming, and most of your revenue has been collected already for the year. Through after August, you will have most of the revenue, probably about 80% of budget. That's due to timing of when real estate taxes are paid. That's due to when your impact fee funds are received. And the only thing that's really consistent throughout the year is the earned income tax, which is going to be approximately $650,000 to $700,000 worth of revenue. That's the last big chunk of revenue that you will receive in the last 5 months, but the township is still in good financial position. So we expect a deficit for the last half of the year, but it's nothing that the township hasn't done over the last 20 years, purely due to timing of when revenues are received.
Perfect. Anybody have questions for Frank?
I do. Frank, if it could be a phrase, a typical Penvest loan, if it's set up, and you're approved, and you start paying, are the payments consistent throughout the term of the loan, or do they change with the principal being?
The payment amount is consistent. It's the principal and interest that vary. So you pay more principal every month, but there are loans, and this happened in your case here with the El Rama sewage project about 3 years ago, because you had a loan, and I'm just going to throw random numbers out here, Mr. Lawson, for about $150,000, because you have 2 loans there. You had a loan for about $150,000. And that's what they equated your principal payment to be on. Well, a couple years later, around 2018, they realized you didn't draw on all the funding. So they adjusted your payment because you didn't draw on all the funding that you were supposed to because of savings in the project. So there is a chance that they could come back and adjust your loan, but on a typical loan, it's consistent throughout the life of the project.
Flat monthly.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
It has happened here in the township, but it's not normal.